Hi guys, this week I'd like to talk about collaboration. Collaboration isn't servitude. Okay, the people you're working with aren't your servants, they're your collaborators. And as you saw from the title of this, How Do I Stop People from Changing My Story? You can't, because you're selling your story and then it's their story and it's been written by you. You don't want it to be not changed for a number of reasons. And I just need you to think about these for a second. Let's say there's 5 characters in your story, 2 main ones. So the other 3 characters occupy 10% of your time, 10% of your brain space, which leaves 70%, which means the other 2 characters get about 35% of your brain, your ability to think of things, to be creative. So when you give that to an actor, that 35% becomes 100%. You think you know the character, you think you know the character completely. Actors inhabit characters. They will understand them better than you do as the writer. I think I've told this story before. During a rehearsal, an actress called Irma Cadiz, she's on Instagram, I'll put her handle down below, was reading a character called Detective Kelly. And she answered the phone very playfully, a little bit, naughty. And that's not really how I wrote it. I didn't put any emotion in how it should be answered. And I was speaking to Irma later, and she said, when a woman takes a phone call early in the morning from a man that she knows, and the first things out of her mouth aren't, "What's wrong?" she's thinking it's a bit of a booty call. They've had a relationship in the past. I didn't write it that way. She inhabited the character. She knew the character better than I did. That's how she reacted when she answered the phone. Fitted perfectly, because when he started talking, she then clicked into serious mode. And that change in, "Oh, that's not why you're calling me, what's wrong?" is acting. And it gave the character depth that it didn't have before. If she had have answered the phone, "Hello, what do you want?" "Yep, very business," it would have been a one-note character. Suddenly the character had depth. Suddenly there was a relationship in the past. And that's because she inhabited the character better than I did. The other reason your script is going to change is you're not a cinematographer, you're not a director, you're not a casting director, you're not a set designer. You have all those jobs. They are all your job. You have the right to direct on the page. You have the right to say it's a 1967 Volkswagen or it's a 1921 DeSoto. You have all those rights until someone takes that job off you. But once they take that job off you, they know it better than you do. In The Hostage, it started off having 3 guys in a car talking. And the director said, that's going to take an extra couple of hours to film, getting the reverse angles. We'll probably have to mount a camera outside the car, so that's an additional rig. We can only have 2 people talking in the car. Of course, he made suggestions. The guy in the back is the hostage. He said, well, why don't we start off with him in the boot? That way we can have a 2-person conversation and someone in the boot. We changed it in the end to saying, well, we'll already have him at the location, and I rewrote the conversation between these 2 guys. In reality, I would probably not even have that conversation. I would have started the film as they walk into the room and found some other way to get that information across. Because having 2 guys talking in a car to me feels a little bit like the start of Pulp Fiction. It's a bit Tarantino-y, and I didn't really want people to go, "Oh, I know what he's doing. He's trying to be Tarantino." But that's how we did it. We resolved it by saying we'll have 2 guys in the car because that will take half a day's filming out, and for a low-budget film, half a day's a lot. In a low-budget film, they try to maybe get through 7 pages a day. This meant they were going to be able to get through 2, which meant was an extra day, which is an extra day of camera hire, craft services, location hire, actors. Some actors that are working for the love of the job or for the opportunity or for very low wages would then have to come back for a second day. Everything was going to be pushed out. So removing that one person from the back allowed me to rewrite the scene, made it a cheaper scene to do. But in the first version of the screenplay, it had 3 people. And if I was one of those people that said, you can't change, how do I stop people from changing my screenplay? The screenplay would never have been made. If I'd have stood my ground and said, nope, we're not going to change that scene, the director would have then said, well, we'll have to change something else. We'll drop that off. They'll make choices that weren't script choices. We'll take that scene out and we'll do something else. There is also the production costs, the actors understanding characters better than you do. I'm just rewriting it in my head. You've also got to think of your job now. You've sold the story on. Your job is now to be the advocate for the story. If they say, oh, and the reason being an advocate for the story, in The Hostage, when the director said, oh, we'll just put the guy in the boot, rewrite it, we'll put it in the boot. I had to advocate for the story because the 2 coppers, the 2 policemen in the car, and keep coppers in mind, that's going to come back in a sec. The 2 policemen, the 2 detectives in the front, one, not a nice guy. The other one is just going along with him. Like, we're going to pull this guy off the street and scare the crap out of him and get some information. Throwing someone in the backseat of a car and driving them around and talking tough to them, that will scare them. And that's what the guy wanted. And that was what the other policeman, well, the other detective, was willing to go along with. Handcuffing someone and throwing them in the boot of the car is another step up. That other policeman would have been instantly as bad as the bad policeman. And there would be no story, because the idea is that these 2 policemen, my drink bottle, asthma's a bit bad today. These 2 policemen are at odds during the story. One's bad, the other one was willing to help him out, but he's not willing to be as bad as him. That's one of the conflicts within the story of The Hostage. They would have both been the guy that's willing to handcuff someone and throw them in the boot. There would have been no surprise later on. And then when they would have had that conflict later on, people would have said, but they are the same guy. They handcuffed him and threw him in the boot. These cops are as bad as each other. Now suddenly this other policeman's making a backflip and he's not going to be as bad as the other guy. That would have been inconsistent. So I had to advocate for the story. I had to have that conversation with the director and the producers and say, this is what's happening. If we have it like that, it's going to change the emotional journey. And it's going to change the feel that the audience will have. You'll immediately have 2 sharks basically in Jaws. So you'll have 2 threats as bad as each other. You won't have this bad threat and a not so bad threat. And as you learn how bad this one is, and you learn that this other one isn't as bad, there's a conflict there. We wouldn't have had that conflict. It would have completely changed the movie by throwing them in the boot. So I got to be an advocate for the story. The other thing is, when we said copper, think of the culture, and I say this to actors if I get the chance. If it's okay for me to have I'll have a bit of a chat with the director first and sort of say things. And if I'm lucky enough to go to a rehearsal or a read through, there's normally always a read through, just so everyone has a read of it. Even if it's not with the actors that are going to be cast, just so I can hear it read, the director can hear it read, the producers hear it read, and then I might say, that's got this weird feel in the middle. Did you pick that up? Because that's the first time you get to hear actors metabolize it. So at a read through, I'll quite often say things that are inside a white guy's head from Australia who's in his late 50s might not be able to be spoken by a woman in England or a young woman from Central Europe. They might come out wrong. There might be words like coppers when it's police, or it's there's some other word that's used locally to where more indigenous to where the film is set. If I can think of a word, I will say the word out loud. I'll have my PC read it to me. I might be able to get my mouth around those words, but sometimes a sentence will stick in your throat or stick in your mouth and you can't get it out. I always say to actors, if you're having that problem, try something else if it's okay with the director. None of my words are sacred. They're not magical. They have a meaning. And as long as you can get the same meaning going from A to B, and it's the same B that we get to, I'm fine with a word not being said. I'm David Wenzel. He's not that guy. He tells a story of where he was doing some work with Dennis Leary, and Dennis Leary's an improv sort of guy, and Dennis Leary was improving lines, and it was sending David mad because David's like, I respect what the writer has done. I'm going to do what was there. I can perform it. Let me perform the words. And so you've got these two different actors, one who likes to be very formal and rigid to the written word, and one who's improving. So that might be something. So people want to change, they want to improv, they want to riff. And if they understand the character, they may have a better word, they may have a look, they may have a, if we look at the last episode where we took all that dialogue out and just used little words to get the story across. So that's what might happen. The character might say, no, I wouldn't say that. That's not what my character would say, because he understands the character now. He knows that the character would be upset and probably just frown at the situation or shake his head. He wouldn't go, I'm upset, you've pissed me off. No, he'd show that he was pissed off. So, things will change. Don't be precious. If you dig your foot in, your film won't be made. That's the attitude you take in. How do I stop people from improving my work? And I'm going to go out on a limb here. You're not that good. The actors are probably better at understanding characters than you are at writing them at the moment. You may get better in the future, but we're not that good. We're not better than the actors that are going to say our words. We're not. That's a really funny little video of Johnny Depp standing on a jetty, a wharf, whatever you say locally, trying to get those lines out. Would you follow a man that does blah? And he goes, God, I hate these writers. Because it's a funny line, but the actor couldn't say it. That's all. And I'll also put a link below, if I can find it, the original scene of the drug buying scene in Pulp Fiction. When it was edited together, they were talking about Vincent Vega's car. But when they recorded it, they filmed it on the day, the way it was written, completely different scene. It's two guys having a conversation with themselves. They're not connecting. Vince is talking about his car. Eric Stoltz is talking about some other thing. And it looks like they're having two separate conversations, not talking to each other. It's two guys talking crap. And then at the end they go, oh, okay, here's the drugs. They realised that that didn't really work, and it didn't work later on if you think of an advocacy for the story, because Vincent had to be comfortable enough to ring that guy up when he's in trouble and saying, I'm bringing someone to you who's dying of a drug overdose. If he wasn't really the sort of person who could have an in-depth conversation about someone scratching his car, he probably wouldn't make that call later on. And when you watch the scene filmed in its original form, it's not a very good scene. It's nothing compared to the one that they edited together later on, where they're having a real conversation. So that had to change. And Quentin changed it on himself. So another director will change what you do for the good of the story, as long as you're an advocate for the story. And after all, you've sold it. It's actually theirs now. Think of yourself as a guy who grows great timber. He grows fantastic wood. Or you're a female who grows fantastic wood. Sorry, bit pronoun-y there. You've got a tree, you've cut it down, you've milled it, you've made a beautiful piece of timber. You don't get to say what furniture is built out of that. You sell the timber and another craftsman takes it, makes a table, a chair, whatever, a doorstop or a door. You don't get to say what happens to the timber when it belongs to someone else. I hope this has helped. Until next time, guys, keep writing. See ya. Bye.